بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله الأمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته, and welcome to this final episode of our valuable book فصول في العقيدة and the Islamic Faith, and today's class is number 24. We will conclude inshallah today's class with this book, and the following class hopefully to be on next Monday, not this Thursday, because most likely this Thursday I'll be going to Medina inshallah. So next Monday we will conclude inshallah with our third segment of questions and answers dedicated for this book, and with that we would finish the course inshallah. So we have the 16th chapter of this book, and in it the Shaykh says the essence of freedom is to be free of subservience to any other than Allah Azza wa Jal. Now this is a very important concept in our Islamic Aqidah, in our conviction, in our belief, in our creed as Muslims. Because when people ignore the fact that they are servants, when they tend to have this rebellious feeling of not submitting, of being free, this is when they are no longer considering themselves slaves to Allah. And this feeling, as many of you may be surprised to know, is found among many Muslims. And I'm not going to say that the Muslims of the East, the Muslims of the West, the Muslims of the intellectual party, that this and that, no. But they are found among all types. When you have this arrogance, when we give da'wah, or when specialized people in da'wah centers give da'wah, they tell us some communities are so quick to accept Islam. And usually these communities are those communities known among people to be humble, to be easygoing, to be soft-spoken. Filipinos, for example, are among those who are very quick to accept Islam, and the Far East in general. But when you go to some cultures, some communities that believe they're supreme, they believe in their supremacy, and that they are better than all mankind due to their race, due to their nation, due to their upbringing, they have this arrogance in them. Such people usually don't accept Islam easy. And this is why you will rarely find high percentages of Muslims like you do in the Far East. Why is that? Simply because they think and believe of themselves more than it deserves. They overrate their intellectual powers, and they value their quote unquote freedom. So they have freedom of speech, freedom of doing whatever you want. It's a free country. Not knowing that once you have this concept in you, even if you're a Muslim, you are in great danger of turning back on your heels, because you have not submitted to Allah Azza wa Jal yet. The essence of freedom is to be free of subservience to anyone other than Allah, and this should be written in gold. To think that freedom is to discard Allah's commandments is nothing less than considering oneself as the idol and giving subservience to desire. And this is what we find in Western and Eastern countries, where they disbelieve and show their enmity to Islam. Only today, with a very small margin, Switzerland voted to ban niqab. And this is the most stupid decision ever made. Yes, it's a sovereign country. They can do whatever they want. Why is that? Because in all of Switzerland, there is only 30 women who wear the niqab. 30. Yet they vote and waste people's money over 30 women? And why are they so anxious to do so? When everyone nowadays with COVID-19, everyone is recommending people to cover their faces with face masks. So the niqab is the best face mask. What is it that you fear? They fear Islam. And they are so arrogant that they consider themselves idle and give subservience to their desires. Allah says in the Quran, consider the one who takes his own desires as his deity, and whom Allah has therefore let go astray, despite his knowledge of the truth, sealing his ears and hearts and placing a cover on his eyes. Who can guide such a person after Allah has abandoned him? Will you not then take heed? This is exactly what fits those atheists, those stubborn infidels who do not want to concede to the truth, or at least objectively look into it. They simply shut off every means of understanding. The Shaykh says, whoever justifies that man can do and say whatever he wishes or chooses, as he chooses and when he chooses, such a person accepts that man is subservient to his own desire. And this is what's happening in the West. Freedom of speech. You can slander anyone. You can speak ill about anyone. You can accuse anyone. And at the end of the day, sorry, I thought that this was right. But you can do whatever you wish without any boundaries. And this is what is thinking of oneself as subservient to one's own desire. Man is created as a subservient being, and this is a well-known fact. We are not lords. We're not gods. We don't have the power and authority. We are born as servants and slaves, and we are servants and slaves to Allah Azza wa Jal. If man does not submit himself to Allah and worship him, he will worship someone else without doubt. So this is your destiny. Your destiny is to be subservient and worshipping. Who? This is something you have to decide. If you are among the fortunate, you will only agree and choose to worship Allah alone. Otherwise, you're going to worship thousands and thousands of different gods that would lead you straight to hell. Had there been only one human. And this is a logical idea. If there were only one human being on earth, Allah would not have legislated for him punishment for murder, slandering, false accusation, and adultery. If I were the only human being on earth, do you think Allah Azza wa Jal would legislate to me punishments that require the presence of others? Of course not. That would not be wise. Nor would Allah have required him, that is the only sole person living on earth, nor would Allah have required him to lower his gaze or to adopt a system of inheritance. Inherit who? There's nobody. He would not have forbidden him adultery. Usury, that is riba, and other vile practices, because it is like asking someone or telling someone nowadays, or giving someone the protocol how to walk on water. Anyone would look at this and says, what is this? This is insane. I can't walk on water. Why do you give me a protocol that shows me how to walk on water when I can't? Now, Allah has legislated all these prescribed punishment, lowering the gaze, how to distribute inheritance, etc. Allah Azza wa Jal has legislated all of these because man lives with other human beings. The greater the number of people, the more life needs controls. Had the moon been the only one in space, would Allah have assigned it such an accurate existence? Of course not. If the moon was the only sphere in the heavens, nothing around it, Allah would not have assigned a specific orbit and a format for it. Allah has made it move so accurately in order to be part of the system that includes the sun, the earth, the planets, and other celestial bodies. The greater their number, the more control is required. Okay, so what does the Shaykh hint to? The Shaykh is hinting to a main concept in Aqidah, which is that we are followers. We are commanded to obey. We are servants and slaves of Allah who should and must worship Him. And this is the system that Allah has placed to govern this universe. And without this system, the universe would not go in line, and there would be chaos, and there would be lots and lots of problems. Imagine if the sun all of a sudden decided to go in a different orbit, and the earth wanted to ward off and be somewhere else and wander around. What would happen? Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, He covers the day with the night in swift pursuit. The sun, the moon, and the stars are subservient to His command. Surely all creation and all authority belongs to Him. Blessed is Allah, the Lord of the worlds. This system, this perfection, it's not like a Swiss watch, as they say, because that has flaws in it. The system the terrestrial system that we see over us. This is perfection that Allah Azza wa Jal has placed for us to observe and wonder. Allah says, neither can the sun overtake the moon, nor can the night outrun the day. Each floats in its own orbit. Yet man decides to think of himself as a god, that he's in control, that he runs everything. And we've seen what a minute virus did to the whole world, with all their technologies, with all their medical achievements and advances. Nothing. It showed them how weak they were, and how weak they are, and how weak they will be in the future. This is Allah's powers, and this is one of Allah's soldiers. Islamic legislation is meant to regulate matters of religion and life. Whoever justifies violating Allah's laws for himself incurs his punishment. And this is inevitable. If you do something, you're gonna be punished for it. If you break the law, you're gonna be punished for it. And this is in worldly matters. How come when you break Allah's laws, you expect to get away with it unpunished? To embrace Islam, it is obligatory, and to turn away from it is apostasy. And this is a well-known fact in Islamic Aqidah. Yet people are still hesitant. Oh, Sheikh, I have a father, and he said clearly he does not believe in the existence of heaven and hell. He does not believe in the angels and the jinn. I showed it to him in the Quran. I explained it to him. He said, I only believe in Allah. How do I deal with this man? He's an apostate, full stop. If you showed him and he still insists, he doesn't follow the Quran and the Sunnah. He doesn't want to follow the pillars of Islam and of Iman. What else can you do to such a person who is refusing to submit his will to Allah Azza wa Jal? This guy is an apostate. As Allah says, whoever of you renounces his faith and dies as a disbeliever, his works shall come to nothing in this world and in the world to come. Such people are destined to hell, wherein they shall abide. And the Prophet said, whoever changes his religion should be killed. So this is the religion of Islam. Either you're a Muslim submitting your will to Allah, or you are in defiance and rejecting it and becoming an apostate. So what is worshipping Allah, being subservient to Allah? To worship Allah is the ultimate purpose of creation and existence. Whoever allows himself to be turned away from it does not believe that it is the purpose of existence. And this is what the vast majority of humans and the jinn never succeed in sitting down and contemplating about it. Why do you think Allah created me? Why am I in this world? Why am I on earth? Is it to eat, drink, mate, and enjoy life? Is it to fall sick and become healthy? Is it to become rich and get poor? Why is it? Is it just to sleep at night and wake up in the day and I do the same routine all over and that's it? This is not why Allah Azza wa Jal created us. So to worship Allah is the ultimate purpose of creation and existence. Whoever allows himself to be turned away from it does not believe that it is the purpose of existence. Allah did not create us for this. Allah created us to worship Him. How is it that a person prohibits the breach of the constitution or the laws of one's country, but justifies the breach of submission to Allah? Isn't that strange and weird? To do so, that is, to justify that I cannot break a red light. I cannot violate the law of the country when they say do not import such and such plants. I cannot disobey the law. But when it comes to halal and haram, yeah, it's okay. There's no problem in skipping salah. There's no problem in free mixing. There is no problem in selling haram products like wine and intoxicants and pork. There is no problem in befriending and having allegiance to the disbelievers. There is no problem in congratulating people of their false deities and religions. There's no problem in not abiding by the Islamic attire. There's no problem in not submitting your will to Allah Azza wa Jal and being content with Allah's decree. And the list goes on and on and on. To do so is to implicitly admit that one does not truly believe in the purpose of creation. But Allah says, I have not created the jinn and mankind to any end other than that they may worship me. The Shaykh concludes by saying, the one who brought the humans and the jinn into this life to worship him alone will certainly bring them into the life to come, so that they will account for their deeds and receive their reward or receive their punishment. May Allah grant us the best of situations in life and give us the best of provisions, and peace and blessing be upon him sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam and those who follow him. Now, this concludes our beautiful book as stated earlier, and indeed this book is beneficial, informative, and it is filled with logical information that objective people, even non-Muslims, can relate to, can understand. It is a huge eye-opener, and may Allah Azza wa Jal reward the brothers and sisters of Usul group who translated this great book and provided it to us in this software copy so that we can study it and benefit from it. Ameen. We conclude today's session with few questions remaining from last time. So Ma'suma says, can you tell me, is zakat applicable for widow and she has no earnings except savings which her kids give her? Do we have to recite durud after qunut in witr? So the first question is about whether it is mandatory upon a widow who has savings but she doesn't earn, and these savings are provided to her by her children. Does she have to give zakat? A rule of thumb: zakat is mandatory over whatever a person possesses, whatever an individual or individuals possess as their own money, whether they are widows, even orphans, children, even if a person is insane, someone who lost his mind, he's insane, he's mentally challenged, he's handicapped, he doesn't have any sense, a person who's in a coma for years, but he has wealth that exceeded the threshold, and a whole lunar year had passed with it in his possession. He must give zakat, which is 2.5% of his savings. So it doesn't matter whether she is a widow or an orphanage or an orphan, or someone is insane, they all have to pay zakat. The only exception is that when there is a non-profit organization where the money does not belong to anyone. So if we have a portfolio where all the family member put a certain amount of money for future use, such as a disaster, an accident, a need to pay money, then we take from it and allocate it to the people who contribute. But at the end of the day, this money does not belong to a specific individual. No one can come and say, listen, since 1995, I've been giving and contributing annually, I want my money back. No, this is not possible. He cannot be given a penny. If this is the case, this money has no zakat in it. If I have a community, or I formed a committee to collect money for a masjid, and now I have in my possession $3 million for that masjid to be built, and a year or two or more pass over this wealth in my possession, there is no zakat on it, because it doesn't belong to an individual or a group of individuals that may possess it once again. Now it's out of their possession. Her second question about offering salutation upon the Prophet ﷺ after the qunut in witr, there are some narrations stating that this is recommended. So yes, when you conclude your qunut in witr, you may say وَصَلِّ اللَّهُمَّ وَسَلِّمْ عَلَى نَبِيِّنَا مُحَمَّدٍ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ, and you go for sujood. Abdullah Sise says, is it permissible to sell condoms as I own a drugstore and I'm in doubt as if I should sell it or not? The answer is yes, it is permissible to sell condoms, because condoms are like a knife. People buy it either to cut bread and meat with it, and once every blue moon someone may buy it to cut someone's throat with it. So does this mean that we prohibit selling knives? No. The item itself is halal to be used, and the person buying it, if he's using it for something that is haram, he is sinful for that. Afrina says, why does Allah care about parents' emotions more than children emotions? What's the children's fault? First of all, Afrina, sorry, nobody has the right to question Allah Azza wa Jal. This is totally inappropriate and disrespectful, especially when being worded in such a fashion to indicate an objection or this is not fair. So this is definitely inappropriate and not allowed. However, if we look at your question, you're saying, why does Allah care about the parents' emotions and He instructs the children to be dutiful, obedient, and respectful, while not asking the parents to be as cordial as that? The reason is, and Allah knows best, that the inner feeling of compassion, mercy, love, and kindness is natural in the hearts of the parents. So you don't preach the choir, as they say. You don't need to. While the children are by nature rebellious, disobedient, and at times ungrateful. So Allah made it clear that they must go out of their way to be kind, dutiful, obedient, respectful, and taking care of their parents. This is the general tendency. This is the norm. You will find sometimes that some of the parents are not at all compassionate or caring or loving. Yet this abnormality does not justify the children to be disobedient or disrespectful. The parents who are of such a nature would be held accountable on the Day of Judgment, and Allah Azza wa Jal would surely punish them for their behavior. Yet, even if they were the worst of people, they still have an upper hand for being the reason of a person existing in this world. And the least you could do to repay them is to follow Allah's commands, which is a form of worship, which is a form of showing your subservience to Allah Azza wa Jal. When you obey and respect and become dutiful and kind to this parent who doesn't deserve it in our worldly standards, but simply because Allah told us to be as this, we are in compliance with it. Zayd says, is sunnah to dye our beards? This is an issue of dispute, and the most authentic opinion is that it is highly recommended to dye the whiteness of the beard, but it is not mandatory. In a hadith, the Prophet said, ﷺ, that the Jews and the Christians do not dye their beards, so dye yours. Okay, dye yours. This is an order. If it's an order, why aren't you complying, Sheikh? Well, there are other evidences reducing it from an obligation to a recommendation. Among them is the fact that the Prophet ﷺ was known to have some white hairs in his beard, his sideburns, and his hair, and that he did not dye it. Also, Umar and Ali, may Allah be pleased with them, two of the great four caliphs and among the 10 heaven bound, had white beards and never dyed it. So these evidences and others all indicate that it is not mandatory to dye. And of course we have other evidences praising one strand of white hair to be light in the face of the individual, and how the Prophet ﷺ prohibited plucking them out, etc. So all of these indicate that it is a recommendation but not an obligation to dye your white hair. For me personally, I would love to, but the problem is every couple of weeks you have to repeat that. And it consumes time and it makes a great mess to prepare the dye. So I think maybe I'm better off without it, and Allah knows best. Muhammad Humyan says, should we have to say our adhkar of the evening after Asr or after Maghrib prayer? It's an issue of dispute. I personally believe that it should be done after Maghrib prayer. This is where the evening begins. But there are other evidences that it is after Asr, and to tell you the truth, it's up to your preference. If you feel good about saying it after Asr, you may do so. I personally do it after Maghrib. Isa Ishaq says, please, in what situation can someone be allowed to be in Salat while wearing his or her shoes? There are no situations for that. The Prophet ﷺ recommended praying in our shoes when he said, go against the Jews and pray in your shoes, because they do not pray in their shoes. So whenever you are wearing your shoes and you want to pray, pray with them on. If I'm in the airport, for example, or in a mall where there are no places for me to pray and it's time for prayer, I just take a corner and I pray with my shoes on. Why would I take my shoes off? There's no reason for that. But when a person enters a masjid that has carpets, then in this case you take your shoes off, so that first of all you would not create any chaos in the masjid when the people see you coming in with your shoes, not knowing whether your shoes are clean or dirty, whether they're pure or najis. This is inappropriate because it would stain and make a scene out of it in the masjid. This is a fitna. But other than that, there is no problem, inshallah, none whatsoever. Sana says, if the post-mortem bleeding stops, if there is no more bleeding after 40 days, can I fast in the month of Ramadan? We know that when a woman gives birth, she gets post-mortem bleeding or postnatal bleeding. And this, the Islam has put a max to it. So this bleeding can go on for 40 days, and she can or she must skip prayer and fasting and not be intimate with her husband for 40 days. But if after 15 days of birth or 20 days, she sees her purity, blood stops altogether, and she sees the white thread-like discharge or complete dryness. In this case, she's ordered to perform ghusl, to start praying and fasting if she wants to fast, and she can be intimate with her husband 15 days or 20 days after her birth, giving birth. Couple of weeks later, meaning that 30 days after her delivery, she sees blood again. We say to her, stop everything. You are now still on your post-natal bleeding until the 40 days are over. Once the 40 days are over, even if the blood does not stop, she makes ghusl and she prays and fasts and can be intimate, providing this is not her menses. And she can tell by the color, the back pain, the cramps, etc. So the point is that she is not obliged to wait for 40 days without praying and fasting. She can pray and fast before that if she were to see her purity. But bearing in mind that if the bleeding comes again within the 40 days, she must stop again. Farzana says, how do we understand the concept of Allah's hands shins, face, fingers. Do we say Allah has a body? First of all, as Muslims, we confirm only what Allah and His messenger confirmed. And we deny what Allah has denied and His messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Other than that, we refrain. So, did Allah tell us in the Quran and in the Sunnah that He has a face? Yes. Eyes? Yes. Shin? Yes. Hands? Yes, two to be exact. Fingers? Yes. So do we confirm this? The answer is yes. So do we say that Allah has a body? Said, whoop, wait. Show me in the Quran or in the Sunnah that Allah said that He has a body. So you say that Allah doesn't have a body. I said, wait again. Show me that Allah said that He does not have a body. Now you're getting me confused. Does Allah have a body or He doesn't have a body? I would say to you, I don't know. Allah did not tell us that. He told us about the previously mentioned attributes of His. So we confirm it. But we do not go beyond that and describe Allah with something He did not describe Himself by. So if a person says Allah does not have a body, we say this is wrong, akhi. You cannot say that. And if a person says Allah has a body, I said this is also wrong. You cannot say that. You can only describe Allah with what He had described Himself or His Messenger ﷺ described Him of. But when that person says Allah doesn't have a body, and he elaborates by saying, and He does not have hands, He does not have a face, I said, no. Come, here you are totally wrong and you are deviant. And when someone says Allah has a body and His hand is like this and His face is like this, and he starts to simulate and give examples, A'udhu Billah, this is the work of al-mushabbiha and al-mujassima. This is totally haram and blasphemous. So we have to stick exactly with what the Sunnah and the Aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah said. Zibya Khan says, how do we calculate zakat on 22 karat of gold? What if I need to calculate zakat of 15 months because I couldn't pay it on its due time? First of all, exceeding the zakat date is sinful, but the date does not change. So if your date was the 1st of Sha'ban, the 8th month of the Islamic calendar, and the following Sha'ban you didn't have money for one reason or the other, you didn't pay zakat in Ramadan, in Shawwal, and on Dhul Qa'dah you had money, so you wanted to give. So you're asking 15 months now had passed. This doesn't make any difference. Calculate your zakat till the 1st of Sha'ban for the 12 months and give zakat. The remaining 3 months, you'll add another 9 months to it. So the following 1st of Sha'ban, you give the second zakat and not now. As for your 22 karat of gold, you have to first find out whether it exceeds the threshold or not. The threshold is calculated in 24 karat of gold. So if you have 85 grams of 24 karat gold or more, you must give zakat, providing a whole year passed with it in your possession. So like, for example, if you have 22 karat gold and you have 200 grams of it, definitely this is zakatable. How to calculate it? It doesn't matter what caliber it is. 22 karat of gold, 200, you have to give 5% of it, of each 100. Well, let me repeat that. The 200 of 22 karat gold, you divide this by 40, and the total would come to you as the zakat. What is the division, the result? 200 grams divided by 40 is 5 grams of 22 karat gold. This is one way of doing it, and this is a 2.5%. The other way of doing it, which is the easiest, go and check the 200 grams value in the market. They say it's an X amount, multiply it by 2.5, and the result is your zakat. Moyan Hussein says, I have a hard time sleeping. So if I regularly recite some adhkar like Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, till I fall asleep, will it fall under innovation? The answer is no. You can make dhikr, you can recite the Quran. All of these are things that are made to comfort your heart and to get you closer to Allah. So if you do this with the intention to utilize your time until you fall asleep, this is totally permissible. KB Thrift says, is assurance, meaning I think insurance schemes, riba and haram? Yes, insurance schemes are based on gambling and riba, and hence they are prohibited. Afsha says, can a jama'ah be made with only one man and wife and daughters, no other male, no son? Yes, this is a jama'ah. If a man prays with his wife, he's not praying single, so this is considered to be a jama'ah. And we're talking in situations where a man cannot go to the masjid, either due to COVID or due to the distance. The masjid is far away, then yes, he can pray with his family, daughters and wife. Mubashir or Mubshasar Ali, what is the difference between Zibya and Halal? Can we eat halal when it's not Zibya? I think by Zibya he means dhabiha, and dhabiha means slaughtered animal. So a slaughtered animal is not halal to eat all the time. It depends on the person who has slaughtered it. So if a Muslim, a Christian or a Jew slaughtered an animal, this is a dhabiha and it is halal. So halal itself is a description that is the opposite of haram. So halal is permissible, haram is prohibited and forbidden. But people nowadays describe the meat as halal, meaning it was slaughtered by a Muslim, Jew or a Christian. And any animal that is slaughtered by other than Muslim, Jew or Christian, it is non-halal, it's non-dhabiha for it. It's a dead meat that we cannot consume. And finally, Fathead says, is it haram for a male professor to teach males and females together? Will his earning be haram? No, his earning will be halal, because a man is the breadwinner of the family, and what he's doing is teaching. So he's not fornicating, he's not free mixing, he's not chit-chatting. All of these are haram. But if he's teaching math or science or literature, whether he's teaching men or women, boys or girls, as he has no control over that, his earning is halal, providing he does not commit anything haram in the process, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. And this is all what we have for today's class, and with it we conclude our course. Until we meet in another course, I leave you fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And as a reminder, next Monday inshallah we will have the final Q&A, so be sure to post them on the Facebook of the Islamic Fiqh page, so that we can inshallah collect them and answer them for you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.